Hook. You won't believe what happened the day my wife changed the lock on our little mountain cabin. What started as a simple act of protecting our home spiraled into the HOA calling the cops on us. But when the officers showed up and my wife pulled something from her jacket pocket, let's just say every jaw in that neighborhood hit the floor. Stick with me, because this story isn't just about rules or locks. It's about standing up for your family, fighting injustice, and the shocking moment that turned everything upside down. It all started when my wife, Sarah, and I finally bought a small cabin tucked away in the mountains. For us, it wasn't just property, it was peace. A place where we could escape the noise of the city and breathe in fresh pine, scented air. Sarah had grown up in a family where stability was rare. She often said the cabin symbolized everything she'd ever wanted: safety, ownership, and a place to call her own. But peace didn't last long. Our cabin sat inside an HOA, controlled community, and from day one, they seemed to have their eyes glued to us. First, it was letters about our non-regulation bird feeder. Then it was friendly reminders about how high our grass should be, even though the property line barely had any grass at all. The tipping point came one Friday evening, when Sarah realized the front door lock was sticking. She's practical, decisive, and protective. So instead of waiting weeks for approval from the HOA, she drove to the hardware store, bought a new lock, and installed it herself. It wasn't just about convenience, it was about safety. We'd already seen strangers snooping around unoccupied cabins nearby, and she wasn't about to risk it. The very next morning, we woke up to find a bright orange notice taped to the cabin door. Unauthorized modification of property. Violation of HOA bylaws. Immediate reversal required. Sarah ripped the paper down with fire in her eyes. It's our lock on our door, on our cabin. They don't get to control this, she said. We thought that would be the end of it, but later that day, the sound of tires crunching gravel filled the quiet mountain air. When I peeked through the blinds, my stomach dropped. A patrol car pulled into the driveway, lights flashing, followed closely by a smug-looking HOA board member. The officer stepped out, hand resting on his belt. We received a report of unauthorized activity, something about forced entry or tampering with property. I couldn't believe it. The HOA had actually called the police. Over a lock. My heart pounded. All I could think about was Sarah being treated like a criminal in the very place she'd worked so hard to call home. But Sarah didn't flinch. She crossed her arms, calm but firm. Officer, before you go any further, I think you should see this. She reached into her jacket, pulled out a leather wallet, and flipped it open. The officer froze. His entire posture shifted, because staring back at him was her badge. The air seemed to thicken. The smug grin on the HOA board member's face disappeared instantly. The officer took a step back, reading the badge carefully before meeting Sarah's eyes. "You're federal?" he asked quietly. Sarah nodded. "Special Agent Sarah Carter, Department of Justice." Her voice was steady, commanding, the kind of tone that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. She wasn't just tough. She was righteous. The officer cleared his throat and straightened his posture. "Mom! With all due respect, I wasn't aware. You weren't supposed to be." Sarah cut in. "But since we're here, let me make something very clear. Filing a false report, wasting law enforcement resources, and harassing homeowners isn't just petty. It's criminal." The HOA board member, a wiry man named Greg, started stammering. "We were just following regulations. The bylaws state. The bylaws don't override state law." Sarah shot back. "And they certainly don't give you the right to treat residents like criminals for protecting their own property." I'd never seen Greg so pale. The officer, clearly uncomfortable, nodded respectfully to Sarah and excused himself, muttering something about needing to file an accurate report. When the patrol car left, silence hung heavy in the driveway. Greg tried to backpedal, mumbling excuses about misunderstandings, and just trying to maintain order. But Sarah didn't let him wiggle out. "You've been harassing us since we moved in. That ends today. If you or anyone else on the board sets foot on our property again, without legitimate cause, I'll treat it as trespassing and pursue legal action." "Understood." Greg nodded so hard I thought his neck might snap. Then he scurried back to his car and disappeared down the road. That night, sitting on the cabin porch, Sarah finally let her guard down. "I didn't want to use the badge unless I had to," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I'm tired of people thinking they can bully their way into our lives. We deserve to feel safe here." I took her hand and squeezed it. "You didn't just protect us today. You reminded them, and me, that home isn't about walls or locks. It's about standing your ground no matter who tries to push you out." Word spread quickly through the community after that day. Neighbors, who'd quietly resented the HOA's heavy-handed rules, began stopping by, thanking Sarah for standing up. Slowly, the board's power began to crack. Residents voted, new leadership emerged, and the endless harassment finally stopped. The cabin, once a battleground, became what we'd dreamed of all along, a sanctuary. Final message. This wasn't just a story about a lock or a badge. It was about courage, about not letting fear or intimidation dictate how you live your life. Sarah's stand against the HOA wasn't just for us. It gave others the courage to say, "Enough." So the next time someone tries to strip away your peace with rules, threats, or false power, remember this: you have the right to stand firm. You have the right to protect what's yours. And sometimes, all it takes is one person saying, "No more," to change everything. Because real power, it's not in a rule book. It's in refusing to let anyone take away your home, your family, or your dignity.